morning.
The theme for 2025 is Rising Higher, Growing Deeper.
You look great, sir.
The theme for December is Shedding Our Skin. Today's topic, Surrendering into Newness. Ernest Holmes brings clarity to the meaning of spiritual surrender in this passage. In teaching us that we must surrender something, Jesus was not telling us that we should live in poverty or limitation. What he was saying is that we put our trust in external things alone, that when we put our trust in external things alone, we are certain to become disillusioned. For a person may have a fortune one day and lose it the next. Jesus was telling us something which contained everything necessary to living in the world. He was not saying that the divine will imposed suffering upon us, but rather that when we fail to live in accord with the divine, we bring suffering to ourselves. Making the great surrender to the Spirit does not mean losing anything worthwhile, but getting rid of those things which deny the presence and the power of the Spirit right here on earth. It is the great negations of life that we have to surrender. The doubts and fears and uncertainties, the coldness and unkindness, the lack of love. Let us affirm together.
I willingly
release
release negations and surrender into newness.
And now please welcome Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson.
Thank you. Hello, beloveds. You know, this season, this beautiful month of December, while it's the darkest month of the year, there's also another piece that's very important to it. It's also a time of many, many holy celebrations that bring in the light, So there are, believe it or not, there are 6 Christian celebrations, which includes Christmas, of course, and Hanukkah is this month. Bodhi Day is tomorrow, December 8th. That's for Buddhism, where Buddha attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. Zoroastrianism has a celebration of one of its prophets. And paganism, of course, what they call Yule, or the winter solstice. And then in addition to that, the African American culture honors and celebrates Kwanzaa, where they go through each of the principles to live by in order to live a full and rich life. So with all of this beautiful energy, all of these rituals and lights and, you know, celebration of light and gift giving and feasts, you know, all of these different things that are going on, there is this certain energy of December that we can relax into rather than stress into. When we realize that there is this intention in all of these different world religions to raise the vibration, to celebrate the light of the divine within. And so let us bring that awareness of all the good that's going on into this month as we focus on something called surrender or shedding that which does not serve. And at the same time, what I'd like you to do is realize that we have our own rituals here too. We honor all of those different spiritual traditions, and we also have our holiday potluck, which is a feasting, a celebration of the feasting, of being together as community. We have our Divine Delights, which celebrates the abundance, the quality of abundance, and it's a gift giving. Think about it. All of those who dedicated all of these different opportunities are giving a gift of themselves in one way or another, and then we are giving ourselves the gift when we bid on them. So there's so much good in it when we keep our minds focused on the qualities of God that are present in these different things that we do. It gives you a whole different experience. Also, we have the World Healing Meditation, which is a continuous ritual that we've had since the very beginning, and I've participated in the World Healing Meditation since 1986. That's when I first heard about it. I was part of a Reiki group at the time that did it for the first time, and I've continued to do it every year. And I am knowing, despite the appearances, that there is a grand awakening taking place because of the great work that we do. And so it's important that we continue to do that. An opportunity again to reflect on our values, reflect on what's important to us. And so as we arise out of the darkness into the light, we arise stronger, more hopeful, more full of faith, more full of all of those gifts of the Spirit that we can share with the rest of the world. So this month we're using a different kind of symbol of transformation. And, I'm so happy we had last month, because last month was all about letting go of the judgments that we have about people and animals and that kind of thing. So when the snake was chosen because it sheds its skin, in the past you might think, well, the snake, that's kind of a negative image. But we know that that in other cultures, the snake is revered, and also in the medical field, the snake is wrapped around that symbol, which represents healing and, for the medical profession. So transformation, the snake shedding the skin. And that skin, of course, represents our past, all of those, what Ernest Holmes called the great negations, shedding and releasing all of that doesn't serve us so that we can shine our light more brightly and to step into the newness, the new version of who we are. So think about it. What happens to that? Why is the snake shedding its skin? Well, the skin that fit just right at one point in time no longer fits. It's no longer fitting. And so it's released. Think about how that applies to you. When you realize that maybe some patterns of thought worked for you at a point in time, but no longer work. So it's time to shed it. And we know, because things get uncomfortable in our lives. Whatever it might be, whatever the circumstance might be, things get uncomfortable, and then we know, okay, it's now time to shed another belief, another way of looking at the world that does not serve me. And I know this is an ongoing process for me, and I trust it's an ongoing process for you. This is what's involved in the evolution of consciousness for all of us. So what are those great negations? I wanted to clarify that a little bit, because often somebody will say, oh, it's fear, doubt, shame, but let's talk about where that comes from. That comes from thought patterns. The thought patterns are the cause. That's what produces the fear and the doubt and the shame and the uncertainty and the guilt and the blame. It's the thought patterns that somehow are tied into this idea of being separate from God, and it's me against the world sort of idea. So this can be one of the most challenging tasks of our lives, is is to shed these patterns, because there's a tendency to want to hold on to these patterns. And why? Why do we have a tendency? Because it's scary to step into something new. It's stepping outside of our comfort zone. So we hold on. Dan has a great quote. Dan, do you want to give me the quote again? Go ahead and say it.
This was one, I wish I remember who it was. It says, we did nothing, and by doing nothing, we stuck to the things that we knew, even if it was the bars of our own jail.
So yes, there's a tendency, because of the brain is wired for survival. And so anything new is scary. I mean, it's important to understand how we're wired, that survival instinct, so that we can transcend it. And so when we notice a resistance, okay, we have these great intentions. I am going to stick to my spiritual practice. I'm going to watch my thoughts as I move throughout the day, and I'm going to change them. You know, you have these great intentions, and then what happens? Anybody know? Anybody notice what happens sometimes? Resistance, yeah. So the resistance that we feel within is that survival mechanism, the way that we're wired. So that's why it requires conscious awareness throughout our day, and being very, very, very gentle with ourselves when we slip. Very gentle with ourselves, and then to get back on track and to do the inner work. And you know, community is a huge support for that. The men's circle, and now the women's circle, are practitioners. You can, give yourself the gift of receiving their support. They've gone through a lot of years of training and have had a lot of years of experience. And community itself, there's so much love and so much wisdom, so many wise men and women in this community. And even if we think of ourselves as wise men and women, we can lean on each other when the challenges come up and the resistance is so strong. And be prayer partners and supportive of one another. That's the beauty of spiritual community. So shedding the great negations. And what does it require? It requires faith and trust in the one life, the one power, the one presence, the one God that is within us as well as all around us. And so if you want to think of this, I'm going to give you another image of a flower. We are like the flower, or we are like the plant that produces the flower, is that we must allow the process to happen through us in order to blossom. That's what our spiritual teachings are. Spirit works through us and as us and is us. We are individualizations of that one presence. So the inner work, the shedding, is so important, and receiving support when you're finding yourself challenged to stick with whatever the process is. So important. So readiness, that's all about getting ourselves ready. Realizing that when we say, I want to grow, and we feel that, there's a part of me that doesn't want to grow because it sounds like hard work, or whatever it is, or maybe something scary might happen. Readiness happens when we understand how all of this works, so that we can make the choice. So we can get ready to choose to stay conscious and choose to be gentle with ourselves when we slip. Open at the top. We keep going back to this. This is one of Ernest Holmes' sayings about our teaching, is that we're open at the top. Being open at the top is understanding that we live, move, and have our being in a field of infinite possibilities and infinite potentialities. Ernest Holmes knew that this spiritual tradition would continue to evolve and grow and expand, which it has over time. And there is also an awareness that because spirit is unlimited, that we are unlimited. We're made in the likeness and image of the divine. We are unlimited beings. We are divinely designed to be unlimited. What does that mean to you, to be unlimited? Unlimited in potentiality and possibility. So that means, of course, there are no barriers to growing more fully in our lives. There are no barriers truly to letting go when we can stay conscious. There are when we go unconscious. The barriers will show up at staying conscious. And so the cool thing about this is that we can, because we're these amazing, powerful, unlimited beings, we can be in the process of letting go and shedding, and at the same time initiating and supporting the new being birthed through these beautiful practices called visioning. And there is a visioning class coming up too, sometime in the spring. Visioning and spiritual mind treatment. The beautiful form of prayer that we offer that reminds us of spiritual truth. It really follows that principle that Jesus spoke of, know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So when we are involved in these beautiful practices, whether it's meditation or spiritual mind treatment or visioning, what we're doing is we're stepping into the field and the flow of God's grace. It's very sweet. It's very nourishing. Very uplifting. This is how we keep our vibrations high and make ourselves available for this process of shedding and becoming and unfolding. And so the beautiful thing about using spiritual practice then is that we're putting the spirit of our being in charge, and therefore we get to our destination, like it's an unfolding destination, but we get to our destination of the shedding process more easily and gracefully because we have aligned ourselves with the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the presence of God. Rings of the tree. Another great metaphor. The rings inside of these grand trees. I remember looking at a fallen tree. I can't even tell you where it was. It was huge. And you could see all of the rings, and each standing for another year of life in the tree. And think about it, with each new ring, greater wisdom was, we can think about greater wisdom in the tree was attained as it continued to grow and grow and grow. And some of these redwoods are 1,000 years old. It's amazing. Think of all the wisdom that tree had gained over time or has gained. And so we too have our own kind of rings, you could call them, that we develop each time we shed and we step into a new version of ourselves. There is we bring all of that wisdom with us that came before. We are amazing beings. We are amazing beings. So each stage, think of yourself as wiser, smarter, more flexible, and gentler and more compassionate as well with yourself and others. Rising higher and growing deeper. That's the beautiful metaphor of this process of evolution. So the way I want to end then is just to simply summarize. So what are the two parts of spiritual surrender, this process of spiritual surrender? It's shedding and it's initiating the new with the visioning process. So we're shedding, we're initiating, we're shedding, we're initiating. And actually in the visioning process there is a shedding that takes place in recognizing what I must release. It goes hand in hand, shedding, initiating, shedding, initiating. So I'd like to turn within for a moment. Let's end in prayer as we tune into that deep and abiding presence of God within us, that awareness that we live, move, and have our being in a field of unlimited possibility, that we are here for God. We are the very life of God individualized. Everything is the life of God. I loved what we talked about last week. We're all souls. All beings are souls. All animals, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, all have the soul of God within them. And so the world is full of souls. We are all the life of God in radiant and vibrant expression. And so we can embrace the snake and embrace the octopus and all of these different creatures as vital parts of creation, holy in and of themselves, just as we are. And I know right here and right now that conscious awareness is available to each and every person here as we move through our lives, aware of our thoughts, aware of what comes out of our mouths, aware of our actions. And again, as we do this, and I have a little rubber band on my wrist that I meant to share with you, is whenever there's a story that's going through the mind that's not serving, we can snap, ouch, we can snap that rubber band on our wrist and interrupt the pattern. So we have so many tools available, and I'm so grateful for this knowing. I release this word to the action of universal law, and I invite us to accept it with a powerful yes, and so it is. Thank you, my friends.